Good afternoon here. Good morning in Australia. My guest today is Luke Charlton, and his one sheet says, AKA the Aussie Hermit. Luke, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here. Yes, I call myself the Aussie Hermit. Actually, we may get into that a little bit later on why I do that. I do that mainly in my emails, so it'd be on topic.
Okay, gotcha. And you're a coach for coaches. Is that a fair description at this point?
Yes, one of those coaches for coaches. That's correct. Yes, I help coaches get clients. I've worked with other high ticket service professionals as well. Though, like if you're like an accountant or a lawyer or whatnot, but or consultant is another. So coaches and consultants are kind of like my main market, but coaches, just because I know the market really well. I started off as like a health coach and then I transitioned to a business coach. So,
Okay.
mainly coaches.
And you walked into this out of a original career in government service. If
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something totally unrelated. I was, working for the government for the equivalent like of the FBI basically, but, it sounds exciting, but it wasn't really. It's just in IT, like doing service desk stuff. So, I worked there for a couple of years and then, I'd had a couple of jobs in the government. I realized that this 9 to 5 lifestyle wasn't for me, and I realized I had to get out of there. And so in about 2013, I quit my job and moved to London, halfway around the world, to kind of, that's when I really wanted to focus on my coaching business. And I thought that, that because I lived in Canberra at the time, which is about 400,000 people, but I thought, okay, move to London. There's more people in London, so that means it'll be easier to get clients. And it didn't really work out that way. Got one
Yeah,
client.
and a fairly expensive place to light and set, I suspect.
So expensive.
Yeah.
I went from having like 20 grand in savings to like 30 grand in debt, and had to borrow money off my parents and my grandma. And then when they said no, then I'm like, okay, I have to come home now. And I ended up actually living with my nan in one of her spare bedrooms, because she was the only one that would let me live like rent free.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was basically a big disaster, but I learned a lot about what not to do growing a business.
Yeah.
So everyone here can benefit from that today.
There's a longer list of don't do this than do this,
Yeah.
isn't there?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Hang on one sec. I've got to still the notification beast, or we're gonna get ding 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 all the whole time. Sorry about that. Um, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's that's a big jump, right? Going from really large org
Yeah.
to
Yep.
on your own, especially on your own new culture.
Yeah. London's quite, it's very, it's like a melting pot. There's a lot of different, international people that like expats and whatnot that from all different countries that come and live there. So it is very different to where I was from in Canberra. And being, as I said, I call myself the Aussie Hermit, right? So I'm a bit of an introvert. I like to stay inside, but because I was there, I'm like, I really need to get out and meet people. So one of the things that I did, was like go to networking events. So I went to networking events like 5 nights per week when I was in London, because there's just that many business events on that you could go to that many. There was off multiple on per night. And so, so I met a lot of people. I didn't get any clients from those events, because I think everyone else had the same idea, or they were desperate for clients. So, I met a ton of people, which was really great, right? Because it's relationships is what it's all about. But it really put me out of my comfort zone, being there, definitely.
And now, one of the things, having read a bit about your background, one of the things that it turns out you must have a heck of a knack for is copywriting. Yeah.
Yeah, not at that stage. I didn't. Otherwise, I probably would have got a lot more clients. But yeah, so what really got me into copywriting was when I actually came back from London and started living with my nan. I got a side job in a cocktail bar, just working at nighttime, and then during the day I was working on my business.
Mm-hmm.
And that really I realized obviously what I was doing wasn't right. And I took a couple of steps back and go, okay, what, you know, I wanted to keep it simple. And so one of the things I kind of started getting into was researching, like, what did like the old school business people do to kind of get clients, even like before funnels, right? Because there was a time before funnels, right? How did people get clients in the beginning stages of the internet? And then before the internet, what do people do to get clients? And that's what kind of led me to copywriting, looking at how discovering copywriting and looking at how copywriters got clients. And it was really simple for them, right? It was basically build a list, and that usually entailed an advertisement in a like in a newspaper or a magazine. Sometimes it promoted a free report, sometimes it promoted a product. But basically the strategy was the same. It was kind of like get people onto a list, and then you'd mail that list consistently, like with an offer that they want. It's that simple. And that's where I started to fall in love with copywriting. And then also the simplicity of just building your list and mailing your list, which for us is just building and emailing your list now.
Right.
But yeah, that's when I started really getting serious about copywriting, because I could see the power what I love about copywriting is power, basically. And what that means is the kind of definition of power for me is the ability to control the outcomes of your life. Really, so by being good at copywriting, you can basically write your own check in a way, right? You can, what's that? The guy from Stan Lee, who created the Marvel comics.
Oh,
One of the
yeah.
one of the things he said in his biography was like, whenever I wanted to make more money, I just wrote more stories. They didn't even have to be like particularly any good, but he just knew how to kind of write stories. And just by producing more, he could basically, if his wife wanted a new car, he'd write a new story. If he wanted a new house, he'd write a few more stories. And that is very, very powerful. And I think that's one of the things that really drew me to copywriting and getting really good at copywriting, was that the power to be able to write my own checks, basically. And again, it's not all about money. It's more about controlling my life. The security thing, I guess, as well. Yeah.
Beatles, that's a Beatles anecdote. Hey, let's write a swimming pool, right? When they were sort of at the top of their game.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yep.
Well, yeah. And words still have the power to move.
They do.
Persuade.
Well, everything's words, even if it's in a VSL or a webinar, or just because it's not on a sales page or like written words.
Yeah.
We're still we're still using copy, like in a podcast or whatever, or in an audio sales type presentation. We're still using words to persuade. So it's all copywriting. I just love copywriting, the actual written form of it, because it's a bit more pure. I think you can really work on that presentation and edit it. And I don't know, it's just a pretty cool thing to be able to persuade people to buy one of your products, or for a client. Like I still run ads for clients, a small handful of clients, and spending tens of thousands of dollars per day. And it's pretty cool to be able to go into a market that I have no previous experience with and be able to get them really great results, because I know this, just the fundamentals of copywriting, and how to create a message that people will be attracted to, and that will make them convert into buyers. I think that's quite powerful to have that skill.
So thinking in terms of the quite a few people who engage this podcast, video or audio, are involved in email marketing. If you were stuck in an elevator with an email marketer, 8 to 10 floors or something like that, is there short advice about getting better at copywriting that you'd give them?
Yeah. My advice, like I'm the guy that I'm not into, I run ads for clients. We run some, funnels, right? Some complex funnels. Sometimes they're tripwires or webinars or whatnot, but what I teach is simplicity. So the stuff that I teach is usually not that new, but it's what works.
Yeah.
So it's not that exciting or it's not that sexy, but it's what makes sales.
Yeah.
And so I preface that, I give you that context to say the first thing that I would say is, if you're ever wondering like what would make this market buy, book an appointment with me, or what would make them click on this ad, or what would persuade them to buy, whatever the question is, right, in relation to getting them to be attracted to you and buy? The answer, the answer is always in the market. Right? You don't have to have a blank bit of paper. And this is what I tell my clients. It's not like you sit down with a blank bit of paper and go, okay, let me write an amazing sales page. No, the first thing you do is you go to the market and you research the market and you find out what are their frustrations, what are their desires, what are their biggest questions, what are their biggest objections. So you get very, very clear about that market and you know them better than they know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that just by doing that, you'll get all the answers to your questions. Like, what's going to make them book an appointment? Oh, they want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. I'm just going to promise that at the end of my emails.
Right.
What's going to make them click, so what's the best lead magnet to create? Oh, they're frustrated with this, and this. How about I create a bit of content to help them with that frustration?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what I mean by the answers are always in the market. Like that's all copywriting is. I'm just learning about a market intimately. And then I'm literally taking their words and I'm reflecting it back to them. That's all we're doing. Now I can tell you a little bit more about how I did that in emails if you want to hear about that. But that's the essence of creating a really great marketing message to creating a message that sells is you just use the words that the market uses. And that way you can't fail because you're just using what they're, what they're telling. But people don't want to do that research. They don't want to do they don't want to do that work, but that's where the money is made. That's where you're digging for gold.
Yeah.
And then, so once you identify like those common patterns, those common frustrations, then you just reflect it. That's the main, if I just have one bit of advice for any business owner that wants to make more sales, you just need to know that. That will help you craft the right offer. It will help you, right program offer or create the right product. The answers are always in the market. It's always in the market.
Nice, nicely put. And it lines up. I wrote a guest blog post for email org that I'm a member of. I don't think it's even published yet, but I kind of teed off on how sunk in data and tech email marketers can get, and the lose sight of the purpose of marketing is Peter Drucker, right? Know your customer well enough that the product sells itself, which is essentially what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. As you name it. So one of the things, like that you mentioned that email marketers, they get, a lot of them get kind of buried in numbers, right? Like open rates and whatnot and so I don't even track my open rates. So and this might be blasphemous, but I'm talking about
it's interesting though that you teed it up.
So okay, maybe in the beginning when you're first growing your email list, you just want to make sure people are actually opening them, like as in like there's not a tech issue, right? So that's like what you want to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the most important thing is, are they booking an appointment, right? That's your main goal. Because there's a lot of email marketers out there that will, be hired by a company and they'll go to the company and go, look, we've got 20% open rates, this month. And we got, 3% click-throughs. And the client's like, oh, that sounds great. It's kind of like the agency that goes, yeah, we've got 1,000 likes for you on Facebook. It's great, but like how many sales did I make or how many appointments did you put in my calendar?
Right.
And so that's what you want to, that's really how you measure the effectiveness of an email campaign is how many sales did you make or how many appointments did those emails book, and anything in between, like open rates, click-through percentages, they can help you like a little bit identify, but even with tracking now being pretty inaccurate with Apple's security and all that stuff, for me, like I measure the effectiveness on the email is, did it get me a sale or did it get me an appointment? Everything else is really irrelevant from that stage.
So focus on business metrics, not diagnostic sort of channel metrics.
Yeah, exactly. The diagnostics, so they can kind of help guide you if there's problems. Usually I use them for tech in the beginning, but once I know that people are actually opening my emails, I just focus, as I said, creating a better marketing message, like writing emails that people want to read. Okay, that's my main, like writing emails that people want to read and then having an offer that they want to buy.
It's great to hear it's put succinctly and simply. It's not always easy for people to stick to that when, that's what I'm looking for. It feels to me sometimes like it's an exhausting job if you're banging out campaign after campaign for a company. It's like, what do I say new? What do I say different? And we have a couple of inboxes we run to sort of subscribe to everything on the planet, right?
Yep.
Gets repetitive really fast. And so frequently they're talking about themselves, not us, right?
Mm.
Your advice to the copywriters, talk to me about me, so to speak. Um,
Yes. Yeah. If you put the message within, like they'll never get bored of themselves, right? So if
yeah.
you speak about them, they'll always tune in. But there are best practices, which I can talk about in terms of making sure your emails get read and even making them fun for you to write as well, which you can get into
Yeah.
if you want.
You mentioned funnels, I think I saw funnels related to some of the copy about your company. Like, what's the funnel world these days, and what, if any, advice do you give your coaching clients about that?
In what do you mean? Like in what context?
Well, there's a lot of formulaic and turnkey funnel offers, and I find myself wanting to pick on click funnels a little bit, which isn't fair. And I'll hear people talk about my funnel, and I'm thinking, it's just, more than anything, it's a psychological construct, not a magic technical convey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why again, my message that I say to my list is, and I was the same. Like I chased the reason why I give this advice is because I've made all these mistakes. But I was saying I was chasing all these bright, shiny objects, and the reason why people do it, it's kind of like when people go from diet to diet. There's this new diet that comes out, and it's like, oh, maybe the reason I haven't lost weight is because I haven't tried this diet yet. So they give this a try for 30 days, doesn't work, or it works, and they come off it and they lose the weight, and they're like, oh, that didn't work. So they go try the next diet, right? So it's like chasing bright, shiny objects, and the industry of funnels is the same. And a big part of that you just mentioned is because people think that the thing that's going to make them successful is the funnel, right? It's the tech, it's the special bot strategy, it's the invisible funnel, it's the fact that it's a low ticket tripwire. Again, it's not the funnel, it's the marketing message, right? At the end of the day, business is the market with a problem, your product is a solution. And so what's the simplest way to get your offer in front of that market, the problem, the solution in front of the problem? For me, I just say, keep it simple and build your list. So get people onto your list with the problem that you solve and then present them the solution through your emails. You don't need a complex funnel to be able to do that. So, if you're trying the funnels, that's fine. But for me, you're making a lot. Like if you're earning over six figures, you're quite, mid six figures, and you want to try funnels, that's great. But I say, look, if you're kind of six figures or below, you're just getting started, keep it simple. We want to make sure that you've got an offer that people want, or you're communicating in a way that people want. And you just, otherwise, if you do a funnel, usually what happens is, you're here for like 6 months or more trying to set it up, like whether you have to create multiple products or, upsells and downsells and complicated email automations and like just a webinar. Like it sounds simple, like, oh, let's do a 60-minute presentation. But again, I know working from thousands of business owners, for them to sit down and put together a 60-minute sales presentation with the intro and the right content and thinking through all that, it doesn't take like a week. It takes them months. And then they have to set up the tech and what's the opportunity cost there, right? Of not actually running any ads in that time. Mm-hmm. So with my clients, I can get them generating leads with ads onto the email list within 4 weeks. And these are people that have no experience with ads, like simply because we just do a simple lead magnet, and build their list. But if I told them to do a webinar or a tripwire funnel, one of the other funnels, like they'll be, 6 months down the line, still trying to get it together. And usually what happens is they run ads, they don't make money. And then now we have to we have to bring down the webinar, we have to redo it. And then you have to spend another couple of $1,000s on ads to test it. And that's the other thing that gurus don't say is to test these funnels, you usually have to spend, quite a little bit of money to, to test the funnel and the message. So, so that's like where I think, again, my advice, that's to people that are under 6 figures, that just want to get something consistent going. That's my advice. If you're already at a certain level, fine, do the complex funnels. You got the time to do it. You got the cash flow. That's fine. So that's kind of like the advice that I give for people looking at funnels.
It's good. It's good advice, right? Like stick with the problem and the people with the problem. Don't start hitting them over the head with tech solutions. Yeah. Yeah. You work with clients still all over the world, I think you said.
Yeah. So the place that I run ads are, so the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. They're the four main countries. I don't do UK just because of the time difference.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough. That'd be a stretch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're already shifting to adjust to those slightly.
Although every now and then I do get someone from Europe that comes through onto my list and they sign up. But yeah, it's not that often.
Do you find any big cultural differences in terms of what works in email? Let's just focus on email for a sec. In those different markets, so like Canadian business coach, different approach from American business coach, for example? No.
No, I just write the emails. For me, just from my personality, I just attract people that resonate with me. Like usually, it's just like when I'm running ads for clients, usually the way that the US responds will be the same way as Canada, like those four, and the UK, right? So you've got the five main kind of Western countries like UK, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand. They usually react, pretty much the same. What I do notice is that Australians resonate with me more. So I like if they're trying to choose between me helping them with their business or an American business coach, they usually swing more towards me because I'm Australian.
Yeah.
So there is that. But in terms of like a marketing message, it's usually pretty consistent across those Western countries.
Okay.
I have one client at the moment now that I'm doing a weight loss campaign for, and works amazing in Australia, but doesn't work that great in the US, Canada, and UK. It's quite strange. So, just figure. Yeah, it's a great offer. It's like a $1. So their business is called the 3-Day Diet, and we have a $1 offer. And yeah, it works amazing in Australia. It works okay in New Zealand, but just totally unprofitable in the UK and the US.
Some little thing misfiring.
Yeah, really. And the click costs, by the way, in those countries are like a quarter. The click cost is actually a quarter of what it is in Australia. So it's much less. The click cost is way less. So what that means is the ads are actually on a click costs, are actually performing 4 times better.
Yeah.
But the clicks aren't converting.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to figure out.
Interesting.
We
didn't talk about this in our preliminary conversation, but I got to live in your country for a year, granted a long time ago. So I have at least a little feel left in my memory for the things that were very much the same and the things that were like, oh, we got to figure out how to translate this somehow. Beautiful place though. My God. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm still jonesing to go back. It's been a long time, but I'm still jonesing to go back. Did not get up to your neck of the woods quite, but a lot of time in Sydney and Blue Mountain.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sydney's nice.
Big.
It's very busy.
It's very busy. Yeah.
Nice to leave as well.
I was kind of wishing that the office for the company was, at the time, had been in Melbourne or Adelaide. Like that would have been a little more my speed, but well.
Yeah. They're pretty. Melbourne's easy to get around in. So Melbourne's not too bad. Although the weather's not that great in Melbourne, but anyway.
It isn't. I didn't realize that.
Huh. Yeah, the days are like it'll be sunny in the morning and then it'll be raining like 2 hours, like pouring down 2 hours later, then it'll be sunny, then it'll be like snowing. The weather changes. It's very renowned for that, for just changing on a dime like that. Really great day to a really terrible day, or vice versa.
Okay. Well, if you're listening and you're planning your vacation, take notes and you're going to get good wine wherever you go.
That's true. That is true.
That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Is there a target sort of size? You've mentioned, over 6 figures, under 6 figures. Like, do you work with clients of all sorts of?
Yeah, I work with, so the clients that I run ads for are typically in this, 7-figure range.
Yeah.
But I work with coaches under 6 figures just because most of the market is made up with people earning under 6 figures. It's the way that, like, law of 80-20.
Yeah.
But yeah, I work with 6-figure plus, 7 figures, and even 8-figure coaches. So I've worked with that whole range.
Wow. That's that someone who's got an 8-figure coaching business. Good on them. It's not an easy thing to. Not an easy.
No, it's not, and it's not something that I would ever desire to run. They have a lot of staff to manage, and it doesn't look fun at all.
Yeah.
I'm just like me and my VA. That's like my whole business at the moment. I may in the future get a salesperson to do my calls.
Mm-hmm.
but my calls come from my email list. So by the time they like opt into my list, read my emails, and they sign up to my wait list for my program, and then they get on a call, they're kind of like very filtered out of the funnel. So I don't do a ton of calls each week, but most of them convert. And I'm happy with that at the moment. It's getting to the point where I probably will have to hire a salesperson, but that's how I want to keep my business, that kind of lean.
Keep it at a scale where it's really under your control, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So if you want to hang out with 2 and 4-year-olds, you can.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
First things first, as they say.
Actually, for people listening, that might sound a bit weird, but I have 2 kids, 2 and 4. I don't think we mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I don't like to go around hanging out with 2 and 4-year-olds. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
I was talking with Dave. We've ended up talking about kids, like a number of guests on that I've had a chance to talk with. Like somehow we end up bumbling over it and talking about kids that they've gotten. It's kind of a kick. You learn about people a bit that way. What's the state of we're going off topic. What's the state of things vis-a-vis pandemic right now there?
I don't know. You probably don't want to hear my thoughts on the pandemic. You might get your podcast banned, but yeah, it depends on, I don't know what the state is. I think people are probably pretty over it at this stage.
Mhm.
I think that, yeah, I think it's starting to become in the rear view mirror. People are wanting to like basically move on.
Mhm.
And even though the politicians are trying to bring it back and bring in some new monkeypox now and whatnot. So I don't know. I hope it's in the rearview mirror. I hope there's no more shenanigans or any more pandemics in the future. But I think there are other things coming up in the future that are much worse than what the pandemic was. Like I don't think the economy is in very good shape. I don't think that the food supply is in that good shape either. I think that's going to be a pretty serious problem in the coming months. So those 2 are the big ones: the economy and the food supply are going to be pretty. I mean, that's already happening in other countries like Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is having riots now because of I think India may have cut off the wheat supply to Sri Lanka a couple of weeks ago. So people think, oh well, that's in Sri Lanka, it doesn't happen here. But in the US, for example, there are already food supplies. There are food factories being burned down randomly over the last few months. I don't know if you've seen that in the news. I mean, it's not reported in the media. But yeah, if you do like a Google search, you get probably even on Google. But yeah, there's factories being burned down. There's the shortage in the fertilizer. There's a lot of things that aren't going the right way at the moment. So my thoughts are, if I was people listening in, I'd have some food prepared for a few months, at least a few months food supply, just in case. But so those are my thoughts.
Well, aside from the ripple effect coming out from the breadbasket of Ukraine, not being busy with other things at the moment. I was just reading this morning that weather pattern in the U.S. is really dinging wheat crops here. And like 3 producer, I think, of wheat in the U.S. So that's not good. Pile that on top. Yeah. It's going to be a bit tight. We've got such an assumption that it'll just happen and show up. It's going to be a bit of a shock, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah.
Then there's the inflation that's going to compound that as well.
Yeah.
People think like the Fed says, oh, we're going to really want to tackle inflation. Well, why don't you raise the interest rates then? They do a lot of jawboning, they do a lot of talking, but there's not much action. So I say just watch what the Fed does, because what they do and what they say are like 2 different things. I think they might do one more rate hike.
I suspect.
But other than that, after that, they won't be able to raise it anymore. Otherwise, the economy will just fall apart. And then I think if inflation is going to get even worse. So again, be prepared. That's what I say.
It's going to be a wild ride for a while, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It intrigues me. You leave the, disease and treatment side of pandemics apart. As a guy in the digital space for a long time, the adjustments that we've made quickly, where now people work like this.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not going to go away.
No. I mean, business owners, I mean, I was already, people would say to me during the pandemic, oh, it's great to be working from home. I was like, I've been working like this for like the last, 10 years. So it's not much of a change for me. I think a lot of entrepreneurs like that anyway.
Yeah.
Or like, solo or entrepreneurs anyway, I'll say. If you've got a company, obviously it's a little bit different with the staff and whatnot, but solo entrepreneurs, I think it's business as usual. But yeah, I think you're right in that there's going to be a lot more remote working, into the future. I don't think that will ever change.
For jobs that can be done that way, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll keep saluting the many teachers and healthcare folks and so on.
Although if I had a desire to build a company, I would want my staff in the office. I wouldn't want them working from home.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would. I think I've read somewhere a while back that you actually get more out of your staff if they're in the office with you than at home.
I believe that just on a human factors basis, like how we're actually wired to interact and that high speed informal. Did you take care of? Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly right. Like as opposed to getting on like a Zoom and just doing all that and organizing a time and then or even like it's just I don't think it's as efficient as being in the office with someone.
Yeah.
There's drawbacks as well at each side. It's
Yeah, it's a trade off. If you manage to do that where commutes are not hellacious, there's probably more willingness.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep reading that Wednesday is now like office day as companies, at least in the US, are starting to coax people back in. It's like they're kind of landing.
I'd hate to be a person that owns like commercial real estate because,
yeah.
Good opportunity though. I think after like if we do go into a recession or some type of depression, there might be some good opportunity to buy some commercial real estate, or because I bet it'll be like pennies on the dollar.
Well, some of the big tech companies in the States have been doing that. I know Google's been acquiring office space. I want to say Facebook, Amazon as well. Like, interesting bet on their part. I mean, you could say they could afford it, but that's still a very deliberate decision.
Yep.
Yeah. I would not want to be in commercial real estate either. Like, yeah, no thanks. Okay. Well, parting thoughts about the future of email.
The future of email, parting thoughts. That is a really good question. I don't think I think email is going to be around for a very long time. It's a different medium. It's never going to be replaced by like Messenger or text, right? Because they're different mediums. Like you wouldn't send, like I send an email each day and it's an entertaining email and people love to read it. But if I sent that same email via Messenger or text, it would really annoy people because that's not what you'd use those Messenger platforms for. It's not to get content and read it. That's for quick conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quick back and forth conversation. So it's a different medium used for a different way of communicating. So I think there's always going to be a place for email. And even if something else overtook it, that would be the new email, if that makes sense. So there's always going to be a way to deliver your message to people in a similar context to email. So I'm not worried about email changing in that regard. What I think from like a copywriting perspective and getting your emails open, and this is again probably an easier way to understand how this works is to read it. Go to my website, lukecharlton.com/blog. I just chuck all my emails on my blog, right? But you can sign up to my list and get my daily emails as well while you're there if you want. But what I think in terms of the future of email is to look at and copywriting as well, getting your emails read and writing effective emails, is you want to look at what people are engaging with, where their attention is, right? So people are watching Netflix, they're watching, streaming, YouTube, social media. And the reason why they're spending, literally, if you go look at like how much time someone spends watching Netflix per day or social media, they spend hours per day.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because these forms of content are entertaining. So people love to be entertained. So if you're struggling with people opening your emails and engaging with them, generally it's because they're not that fun to read. They're not that entertaining. It might just be like full of content, for example. Like content Content's great, but usually that only works for a couple of weeks, and the person, like, your open rates go down, and then no one, they just put your email in like great content, I'll read it later. Everyone's got that, like, great content folder, I'll read it later type thing, and no one ever reads that.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that your emails are entertaining, because that's what people want. They want to be entertained, right? They're spending hours on Netflix, but if they're not taking a couple of minutes just to read your email, there's obviously something wrong with what you're writing in your email. So I say make your emails entertaining. A very simple way to do that, which you'll see if you read my emails, is just by telling stories. And your stories can literally come from anywhere. You don't have to have an amazing life. Again, I call myself the Aussie hermit because I'm inside most of the time, right? So your stories can come from news articles, from Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, right? That's a great story, right? So the stories are all over the place, entertaining stories. And so you tell the story, and then you tie that in with whatever you are selling. Again, if you go read my emails, you'll see how I do that, and you just model that framework. But people really engage with these emails. Like I get emails all the time. Like a lady sent me one. Let's see if I can quickly pull it up here. She sent me an email saying, oh no, it's not here. But I'll do a paraphrase version. Actually, no, it is there. Okay, here it is. She said, Luke, I have to let you know, and I get emails like this all the time, by the way. Luke, I have to let you know, I've created a folder just for you. Every single one is valuable. Thank you. Your copywriting is amazing. Okay. So, and I get people writing all the time saying, I love your emails. Sometimes when I have a strong opinion, they might say, you're an idiot, that type of thing. But mostly it's positive. And that's because I start with entertainment. Like I lead with entertainment. I make sure that my emails are entertaining in the first instance. And then I teach them something valuable from that story. Mm-hmm. So the future of email is to those people that focus on entertainment and understand. As they remember, the answers are always in the market. So what is the market? Where is their attention focused? Yeah. It's on Netflix, it's on YouTube, it's on things that are entertaining. Yeah. So you better make sure that your emails are entertaining. Otherwise, they might stick around for the first couple of weeks, but after that, it tends to die down pretty quickly in terms of people wanting to engage and open your emails.
Do you find it challenging to be entertaining on a regular basis, or does it come naturally?
No, I mean, that's my whole system. That's what I teach in my program. But, so I get, as I said, your ideas will come from all over the place. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have, let me see here. So an example here is, I'm just looking at all my previous emails that I've written. So the start of this email is, continually seeing headlines like this doesn't fill the Aussie hermit with much hope for humanity's future. And the headline is, woman hospitalized for refusing to fart in front of her boyfriend. Okay. So I was just on a news website, and that was one of the main headlines, woman hospitalized. And at first I had a laugh. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a great,
right. Great book. You can't not read that.
Exactly right. So that my subject line was farting in front of your client for the first time. So I just kind of twisted it a little bit.
Sure.
But the point is, I don't have to be like a comedian or a late night show TV host to be funny or entertaining. And not all the stories are funny, by the way. It could be frustrating. It could be happy or sad or whatever. But the point is the ideas come from outside of me. I don't kind of sit there with a blank bit of paper and go, what should I write today?
Right.
I see something and I go, let's write about that. Or my kids say something funny to me, or they say something that makes me really angry, and I might write an email about that. Mm-hmm. So what I teach is like, okay, in my program, I give people a massive list of like, here are all the different places that I get ideas from. Mm-hmm. And when you'll see them, like once you read the list, you'll see, okay, so news articles is a great one, like news headlines. Just go on some news websites, look up what are the most recent headlines, Hollywood headlines, investment headlines. I mean, that's a really simple thing to do to start getting some story ideas. And people love news. People love anything that's new. So that's a really great engaging, like a client of mine wrote about when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. And that was one of the highest ever open emails. Yeah. Just because it was so recent and new. Yeah. Right, so once you know where to look, it's pretty easy to come up with ideas. But what I will say is I know it's a good story when it sparks an emotion, like a strong emotion within me. So if I laugh, or if I am really frustrated, or if I am angry, or whatever that emotion is,
Yeah.
if I feel humiliated, or if I think back to an old story of me, I'm like, that's a really a beginning of a great story. Because if it sparks an emotion within me, it's going to be fun to write. I'm going to be passionate about writing it, and the person reading is going to feel that emotion. As you know, with copyright, it's all about emotion. Like the sale is like 90% emotion. So we get them engaged emotionally, which is 90%, and then the 10% is the logical part of why they should buy it. But so if it sparks a strong emotion within you, that's the best place, right? So just pay attention to what kind of interests you, what sparks that emotion, and then that's a good place to start with the stories.
Boy, that is terrific advice. It really is. Yeah. I mean, you make it sound simple. I know it's not, and you've got years invested in doing it, but that is.
No, it is actually pretty much that simple. Like, it is actually pretty simple. Like, once you, but what probably is the hardest thing is just remembering in the beginning, like just getting into the habit. Like, cause I could just from this interview, I could, tell 3 stories to my email list, cause we talked about a few different things in this interview, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
And I could, as I said, I could come up with 3 stories that it's reminded me about, or I could even just tell a story about this whole interview I had, a good interview today. And one of the questions that made me think about, like, what was, one of the questions you asked, like, where did I, where was the pandemic going, or what do you think about the situation with the pandemic? And then I could write an email about that. So
Sure.
so they're all over the place, Great places are when you're on sales calls. I get ideas all the time, because when I speak to coaches and they're like, okay, I'm stuck with this and this. I'm like, okay, that's a great story. That's a great story, So it's just really the hardest part is getting into the habit of it. And that's why I give my clients a list, so they put that next to their desk. And then once they kind of use it, then it's like similar to me. They just, see them all over the place.
Just starts building.
And for the email copywriters listening, to make your emails more fun for yourself or your clients, get stories that's another way to make it more fun for you. Just get stories from all over the place. And that will make it more enjoyable for you to write these emails as well.
I like it. Well, let's close on that. Thank you for the lesson, by the way.
Sure.
That's really good. So my guest today, Luke Charlton. Luke, where does someone go to find out more? And I'm going to sign up. So where do they go to sign up?
So probably the best place is so I have a free guide / booklet called The 9 Email Offers that get clients for free. So if you just go to 9emailoffice.com, so the number 9emailoffice.com, they'll take you to a landing page. You can grab that booklet and you'll be able to see some different offers that you can send out to your email list to book appointments or generate some more sales. And then once you're on my email list, and you'll see how my daily emails work, and you'll be able to see, okay, there's where he's using the story, and here's how he's tied the story in, and okay, now he's going to the close, right? So story, lesson, close is the framework.
You're your own, you're your own living example. I love it.
Exactly right. Like I do that's why I don't do any complex funnels. I could do them for clients. I know how to do them. I've been very successful with them.
Yeah.
I don't do them for myself because I want to demonstrate, to my clients, you don't need a complex funnel to be a successful coach or consultant. I may do one in the future. I'm writing a book at the moment, so I may do one for that. But at the present stage, I just keep things really simple. Just a lead magnet, build my list, and email that list. Yeah, pretty simple.
It works. Well, cool. Luke, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for the time.
Pleasure being here. It was a great interview.